Hey guys, it's Chef Charlie, and we're back here again, this time in my kitchen. Estamos en mi casa, and we're here to celebrate National Hispanic Heritage Month, and we're gonna take a trip to Argentina. Come.
We can't forget our Spanish olive.
Up there, almost no pink left.
Want to go with less sodium because you can always add your own salt.
Raisins, a little bit of the onions and peppers. So one of my favorite things about Argentina are the beef empanadas, and that's what we're making today. And I'm gonna turn the oven on to 375. I'm gonna have that preheated, making sure it's ready to go. Once that's all set, I'm gonna start cutting our vegetables. We're gonna come over here. We're gonna start off. I have 2 small yellow onions and 2 small bell peppers that we're gonna cut into small dices. For an onion, how I typically cut it, I cut the top off, and that gives me a flat surface right there. And I put that down, so I know it's not gonna move. Cut it right in half, like that. I have 2 perfect halves. I'll do the same for the other one. Like that. And then I'll just peel that skin off. Great thing about onions is they add a lot of base to any dish you make. A lot of dishes, almost any dish around the world, has a base of onions. So onions are very versatile. So for our onions, to do a small dice, you want to start off palm like that. You go across your onion through the bottom, making sure not to cut yourself. That's why we have our fingers up like that. And then I always call it the claw, is how they taught us in culinary school. You kind of want to grip it like that, kind of clawing the onion, making sure it's safe in your hand and your thumb is always in the back. You always want to protect your fingers. You go like that, nice and smooth, nice straight lines across, all the way across on onion. And then you want to turn that perpendicular, like that, and we're going to make nice little squares. All across your onion. And when you do that, you're left with very minimum waste. And now we'll start on our 2 bell peppers. For me, how I like to cut it, there's different ways. I like to cut off the top, the bottom, like that. Again, always gives me flat surfaces. That's very important because the objects, you don't want whatever you're cutting to move in your hand. So then when we grab, want to make sure it doesn't move, you kind of cut into it. You kind of cut into it like that, like a ring across. You want to get all those seeds out. Like that, you're left with a clean slate. So now that we have our peppers, we're gonna hold it down like that. Again, making sure your thumb is in the back. And we're gonna make nice strips like that. And this, we cut into strips like this because it's really gonna help cutting and getting even sizes. And that's what you want. You don't want big pieces of peppers or small pieces of peppers all mixed in, because then you're gonna get uneven cooking. So now that we have our nice little sticks here, we'll go ahead, pile them up like that, straight line, hold them, being careful with your fingers, and we'll do a small dice like that, and that cuts them into all even sizes like that, perfect little squares. And we're done. All nice and set. We can mix that in with our onions because they're gonna be cooked together. And if you have gas or stove or electric, excuse me, I would say medium high. You know, we want to cook and brown our meat, and but we don't want to burn it. So we're gonna let that heat up real quick, and then we're gonna add our meat in.
So the ground meat we're looking for, it's a 93% lean, 7% fat. It's on the leaner side. And I want to come and get it here because it's fresh ground beef every day here at the butcher shop at Compare Foods. Usually if you want burgers or something like that, you're gonna go with something a little bit fattier, 80-20% cut. But since we're doing empanadas today, we're gonna stay on the leaner side.
So I feel my pan's ready to go. We're gonna add about 2 tablespoons of oil. I got my ground beef that we got from Compare Foods. We're gonna add that in. And when you hear that noise right there, that's exactly what you want. That's a perfect, that's how you know it's at the perfect temperature to start cooking. And we'll keep moving that around and make sure we get all that meat cooked. You want to break it up like this, because that's going to help it cook faster. And you could also use the back of the spoon, kind of break it up in tiny pieces. You don't want clumps of large beef in there, because then the texture won't fit right in your mouth. So just try to break it up as much as you can as well. And put this little strainer in there to help take away all that excess liquid that we don't want. Just be very careful and gentle. And we want to take that liquid out because that's where a lot of the fat from the meat comes from. And we don't need that. Now that we have our pans all clean, that's all good to go. Pans heating back up again. And it's good that we have those little pieces of meat, because that's going to add flavor all into our base. So now that we have our ground beef out of our pan, we want to make sure to turn that heat down a little lower, because this now is where you can really burn your stuff. So you want to take it safe. Make sure it's down to medium low. We're going to add another tablespoon or 2 tablespoons of oil. And we're going to take back our onions and peppers that we had cut. I'm going to throw them in there. It's also important too that we keep our fire low, because we're going to add our spices now. And we don't want to burn that, because if you burn those spices, there's no way you can fix this. So if you can see here, you have 3 tablespoons of ground cumin. You have 2 tablespoons of sweet paprika. You have a tablespoon of dried oregano, a little bit of heat with a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne, and then we also have our 2 teaspoons of sugar that we're going to add in there. Mix that up a little bit, make sure it's all even, all on there. Move your pan a little bit. The pan's going to seem a little dry because we're using a lot of seasoning, but it's really going to give us that punch of flavor later in the meat. You don't want to leave the pan right now, because this can easily burn. There's a lot of seasonings in here that can burn up really fast. So it's important to stay right here by your pan the whole time. You can keep moving it and help make sure it does not burn. Now what we want to do is we want to take our meat. Again, be careful if you have a drain. So you still get a lot of fat in that liquid. You want to keep that out. We're going to add our meat back in there. Here we have some chicken stock. It's going to be 1.5 cups.
So you're probably asking, why are we using chicken stock and not beef stock? Well, the main reason is chicken stock has a lot more flavor than any beef stock that you can ever find. And you typically want to go with less sodium, because you can always add your own salt. You don't want to go for the regular chicken broth. It's very high in sodium.
And this is really going to help bring all those flavors together. The meat, all the veggies that we were cooking, all the spices. And this is really going to help take off all that fond we were just talking about. How good does that look? I wish you guys could smell this right now. Make sure you kind of move the spoon against the bottom of the pan, because all that fond that was sticking that we talked about, you want to make sure you get that off and it goes into that liquid in the meat. And we're going to keep cooking that until most of the liquid's gone. And again, back to breaking that beef up, and just making sure there's no chunks of meat in there.
So since we're doing beef empanadas, it's a savory dish, and we're going to balance that out by adding a little bit of sweetness in it. We're going to have a little bit of sugar and raisins. That's going to complement it beautiful.
All right, we are there. All of our liquid, for the most part, is all gone. We can turn that off now. We have our 1/2 cup of raisins right here. We're gonna add that in and just stir it. And we're adding these at the end only to incorporate it to the meat, because they're gonna cook in the oven as well. And we don't want to overcook them, because then they get mushy and just unpleasant. So we kind of just want to move that around, just evenly disperse it. So now that we have our raisins in here, mixed in well, pretty good. We're gonna go ahead, ready, put it into a clean bowl. We're gonna let that cool off. Again, guys, this smells so good. I wish you were here. Can't wait to try this. Now we're gonna take our meat and we're gonna let it cool off. Should take about 5 to 10 minutes just to make sure it's cool enough that we can hold it in our hand and put it in our empanada dish. So here we have one of my favorite empanada dishes. These are actually puff pastry and they're a little more buttery and flaky. So they give you a nice little better flavor than your regular turnover pastry. So we're gonna just spread these across. You wanna make sure, since these are from the frozen section, that we got ours at Compare. You just wanna leave them out a little bit before to make sure they're not completely frozen. And we're just gonna spread these across. Like this. So now that we got them all spread out like this, we have a little bit of chilled water here. And with your fingers, you can just go across the whole thing. Normally people would just go around the edge, and that's fine as well too, but it's all right in this situation. You could just gently wet that whole empanada dish, and we're doing this because it's gonna help seal the empanada dish when we're gonna close them to make sure none of that delicious meat comes out. So here we have our chilled meat. And I like to use a scoop like this. It gives you the same portion size for each empanada. If you don't have one of these at home, you could just use a spoon. That's fine as well. Place that right in the middle. And we're gonna fill each one of these up. Like that. Be generous as well. Just make sure it's enough for each one. Last two. So what we have here is our last little piece, how we're gonna stuff them. We're gonna put 2 halves of an pitted olive in each one. And we're leaving this for the end because, again, you want everybody to have that same bite. You don't want one to have 50 olive pads and the other one have just one, you know. So this is where the plastic piece comes in handy. You can grab the corners, kind of fold it over while you're pushing all the stuff back in, making sure it doesn't fall out. Like that, kind of close it. You can pinch the edges, kind of pushing that meat, making sure it stays on the inside and doesn't come out. Like that. Like that. And what we're doing here is just evenly moving all the inside stuff together. Now that we have these locked up, we're gonna secure them. So now we pull apart the plastic. And the 2 ways is there's the Argentinian way and then there's the easy way. But we'll start with the Argentinian way. And it's actually pretty fun once you learn it. So how we start that is we take this top part right here and we fold it down like that. And it creates another top right there. You kind of just keep folding down like that, like that, and you see it start to create this little nice fold that Argentinian empanadas are known for. And don't be discouraged. My first time did not look like this either, but after a couple practices, you kind of get it back. For those who didn't like that, now I'm going to show you the easy way and the fast way. Grab a fork and you're just going to press down against the edges like that. Just like that. And that's going to help seal those edges. And that's what we want, to make sure nothing comes out. Just like that. You see, you got a nice little sun looking shape. We'll do it one more time. Again, you start at one of the edges. And you press down like that. Nice and simple. So now we got our sheet pan already set with aluminum. It will now help not make as big of a mess. We're gonna put a little bit of oil on that to make sure these don't stick. Since they're puff pastry, they do tend to stick a little more than the regular turnover dough. And again, we have our fork fold, and we'll put those together. And these are gonna go in the oven for about 20 minutes, 20 to 25 minutes. What you're looking for is what they call GBD. And GBD stands for golden, brown, and delicious. And that's a term that's always used in the kitchen. Again, we have our both styles, the Argentinian style and then our classic fork style. So now these are ready to go in the oven. Be careful, remember the oven is preheated. And now that we got some time to kill, we're gonna start on some delicious sauces for these empanadas, because there's nothing better than pairing something up with an amazing sauce. So let's go and start that. And the first one is a Sofrito Crema. And this is how simple it is. So we're gonna do 1 cup of sour cream, or about half of this container. Sure you get it all out. Yeah. And after that, we're gonna add 1 teaspoon of sofrito. Nice little teaspoon in there. And then we're gonna add a sazon packet right here. And spread that in there. We're gonna add 1 teaspoon of garlic salt. Like that. Just move it all around, make sure it's all incorporated really good, and look at that color. It already starts to shine right away. And that is ready to go. And now we can start on our second sauce. Now, the other sauce that we're making today is also known from Argentina. It's chimichurri, and we're gonna make a super simple and super fast one. So let's start. So we're gonna take about 1.5 cups of fresh parsley. And you can just give it a simple dice like that. And we're gonna put it into our food processor. So we have that. Now we're gonna pick up 6 fresh basil leaves, and we're gonna add 6 fresh basil leaves. You always wanna pick from the bunch, the ones that have a lot of life, the greenest, the ones that seem to be a little bit more sturdy than the other ones. We're gonna add that in there. And then next for our greens, we have fresh oregano. And if you smell oregano, you know it's different from any other of these greens. So we're gonna pick out 2 sprigs right here, like that. What we're gonna do is just pull off all the little leaves on it. And 2 should be good enough. 4 garlic cloves, fresh garlic all the time. Easy way to open this, palm down. Just kind of push down with it, kind of cracks open like that. You can pull it apart. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. Put your knife right over, palm. Make sure your fingers are up, right there, and just splat it down like that. Being careful with it, like that. That's gonna help pull that skin off super fast, like that. And we're just gonna throw that in there because it's all gonna get all mixed together. Right here I have white wine vinegar. You could use either regular wine vinegar or try to go for something more on the fruity side like apple cider or champagne vinegar. Or 6 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. Since this is a sauce and we're not cooking with this, try to use a higher end extra virgin olive oil, because that flavor is really gonna stand on that sauce. Like that. We're gonna do a teaspoon of red chili flakes. If you're not a fan of spice, omit this. Don't even go there. If you like spice, add another teaspoon. And lastly, a big pinch of salt, like that, and a little bit of black pepper. Right. See? Simple. All we have to do is close this up, hit it a couple times. Depending on how chunky or how mixed well you want it, just let it go for longer. I like mine a little in between. You get to please both crowds. So now that our sauce is ready, we're just gonna put it into this bowl. And look at that bright green color. You can see those nice little chili flakes in there. You can see so much depth of flavor. And that oil with the vinegar, it's really gonna bring out all those greens that we put in there. As you can see, look at that beautiful green color. And that's why it's really important to use new lively greens. The basil, the parsley, the oregano, and it all has to be like that, fresh, because if it's not fresh, it will not look as good as this right now. Now these empanadas smell ready. Que rico huele. Yeah. That color that we're talking about, especially on the edges, that's GBD right there. Golden brown delicious. Now remember guys, pulling these out of the oven, they're extremely hot, so you don't want to burn yourself. Let them cool down for a couple minutes, and then we'll get to all what we've been working for. So now that they've been here for a couple minutes, we'll just put them here in our bowl. Again, with our folds, if you have somebody in your house that might be vegetarian or just wants a different style empanada, you could always use and mark them off differently. So you could do the fold for a different type of empanada, and then you can do the fork technique for a different empanada. That way you're not biting into these trying to see which one you're getting. And here we have our empanadas with our two sauces. We have our quick chimichurri sauce right here, and then we also have our Sofrito Crema as well. And remember guys, this is Chef Charlie with Cooking with Compare. Catch me next time.